Welcome to the 22 EOCP conference. My name is Jim McQuarrie. I'm going to be moderating this event, this wastewater stream today. And I'm going to introduce to you the first presentation. This is Scott Jamieson. I've met Scott, what was it, 97 you said? 97, 98, yeah. Yeah, that's just aging us, isn't it? Anyway, Scott runs a Jamieson Water Services. Scott graduated from the OUC, the Okanagan College. He's been working in both water and wastewater field for 25 years. And anything in your life for 25 years, I tell you. During that time, he's done the water distribution, water treatment, wastewater. That's where I spent most of my time with Scott. He is currently working through the levels of wastewater collection with the goal of achieving a level 4 certification in that as well. Scott has been providing on-site and classroom training to operators in BC, Alberta, and Northwest Territories since 2007. Scott is always looking at opportunities to engage with operators and new strategies to help and achieve their certification goals. So, welcome, Scott, and yeah, thank you. There you go.
All right. Thanks for coming to this session this morning. I think I know a few of you in here have had the unpleasant experience of going to one of my courses before. So, and for those who haven't, welcome. Nice to meet you. Nice to see some new faces. You know, you're getting a little bit of the substitute teacher this morning. I had to jump in here at the last minute last week to fill in a slot that someone had to cancel out. So I put something quickly together. One of the key things that you know, I do in-class training courses and on-site training. One of the key ones is people are always, you know, how do I remember all this information that you're throwing at me? How do I remember this for an exam? I've got to spit this out on Friday, and you know, it's all coming at me really fast here. So I'm going to try to go over some of the key little things that you can do as an operator when you're, you know, sitting at a conference or sitting in a class, and how to pick out some of that information and be able to recall it later, right? So, but the first, you know, it is the first session. We do need to try to wake people up a little bit. You know, we are just going to go over some basics, right? There is essential information that every operator should know about wastewater treatment. It's just questions that pop up on every exam when you go through them, right? You know, questions on things like, you know, what does a pH reading of 6 indicate, right? You know, doesn't matter if you're taking a wastewater collection level 1 exam or a wastewater treatment level 4 exam, right? Questions like that are going to pop up. And like I said, we're going to try to wake people up here. We'll do a little fun game to start and see what we can know, see what we can recall already out of our brains, right? So it's good that you guys are already split in half, so we can do both halves. We can fight each other here, right? So if we can show the question for this one. Sorry, I can't run this by myself here. So we're looking for common process steps for preliminary treatment, right? So we can just, you know, hopefully, if you say preliminary treatment, what's the first thing, someone on this side, what's the first thing that comes to your head? Anyone? Screenings. All right, number 2. There you go, screenings. Perfect. Other side, preliminary treatment, something. Grit removal. Number 3 on the board. All right, back to this side. Someone else, preliminary. Yeah. Who said aerating? All right, number 4 on the board. Someone over on this side. Dun, 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 dun. I need Jeopardy music now. Come on, number 1 answer's on the board. Flow metering, number 1 answer on the board. All right, last one's going to be a little bit, always a hard one at the last one. Anyone? We'll take from either side. Dun, 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 dun. Not grinding. Sorry? We're dancing, but I would know that's a good answer. That should have been number 6. All right, we'll throw it up there. Number 5, I left it as chemical addition. So, all right, and these are going to pop up later for you, so we're going to see how much you remember out of this. All right, we got one more. We move on to what's next. We'll show the question for this one. So after preliminary, we've got primary. So this one now, we're going to look for essential information for primary treatment. So once again, if I say primary treatment, what are some key things that every operator should know about primary treatment? We'll start with someone on this side. Oh, man, dead silence. Settling. Yeah, this one's going to be a little bit different. We're going to go through some more different parameters in there. No, we're going to give you an X on that one. pH, man, how come everyone I gave this to earlier was on the different wavelength? All right, let's. I'll give you number 5, and this might help you out. Temperature. Density. You're dancing around lots of stuff here. Suspended solids. We'll give you that one. And number 4. All right, so you should know about BOD TSS removal rates for primary. What's one of the really key parts of operating a primary settling tank? The settling capability, which is related to the, we'll give you number 2 for settling capability, related to the flow velocity, right? How much flow are you throwing through that tank, right? I'll just give you these ones because obviously, where I ended up and where you guys are going is, we'll just be here all day. So number 1, also named that settling and flow velocity, the surface overflow rate that you have going on. And number 3, the sludge removal rate, right? Anyone ever done an Imhoff comb test? Anyone? No one's going to admit to it? All right, someone in the back has admitted to it. There you go, good stuff. And number 6, skimmer speed, right? On your skimmer arms that you have going on there. And finally, number 7, the influent TSS. Done. Okay. Whew. All right. Once again, we'll see what you remember at the end here. Now, what we really wanted to know then is, this is what happens in a course. Someone talks about preliminary treatment, primary treatment for 15 minutes, and they shoot a bunch of information at you. How do you remember that information that's getting thrown at you? So I'm going to go. Hopefully, no one in here is a neurologist and will question me on anything that I'm going to say here. But memory and recall is a very complex process, and we're going to go over it very, very basically. There are 3 key components to memory: sensory input, short-term, long-term memory, right? Sensory input. Did you actually sense what happened, right? Did one of your sight, hearing, whatever, did you have some sort of input, right? If the light down behind here flashes green, you guys didn't see it, you can't remember that it was green right now, right? You did not have any sensory input. So this is an automatic response, and then when we have that automatic response, our brain has to decide what to do with that response. So it goes to short-term memory. This is, about up to about 30 seconds where we're able to hold things in short-term memory and process it. And this is the time that our brain decides, is this important? Do I want to encode this and try to be able to recall this at some later time? Or is this just garbage stimuli and let's forget it, right? And move on to the next. Because we're constantly bombarded with new stimuli. So we've got to make these decisions really quick, right? Am I going to remember this, or am I just going to move on to the next stimuli? Long term, this is something now where we have decided we're going to keep this information, but this is where we also run into issues of where do we put this inside of our vast brains, and how do we get that information later that I decided was important to remember. So short-term memory, like I said, up to about 30 seconds. If you haven't processed anything and put it into long-term memory after 30 seconds, it's gone. Right? Short-term memory also has limited capabilities. So this is 7 plus or minus 2 items that you can be processing in short-term memory at any time. So key one that everyone remembers this is phone numbers, right? This is why phone numbers aren't really, really long digits, because you cannot remember those long strings of digits. You can only remember, some people can remember 9, some people can only remember 5, right? 7 plus or minus 2. So you can think of this as like the grocery list, the shopping list. Same with a course, right? You put up a slide and here's 7 things that you need to remember. Well, if you're not encoding those into long-term memory, you're going to lose them. One of the key things is you always lose the stuff that's in the middle, right? If you go to a memory seminar, they're going to give you a list of 10 things, and then they're going to ask you, after 15 minutes, hey, what were those 10 things I gave you? And most people will get, the first 3 and the last 3 and forget everything in the middle. So what we need to do then, when we have things in our short-term memory, is we need to work out some strategies. How am I going to remember these 10 facts that I just got given about preliminary treatment? So we can go through some ideas. One of the first ones that people do is maintenance rehearsal, right? You've got something in short-term memory. You keep it there and you just keep cycling it. This is for anyone in here who's, over 40 and used to have to call up the operator and get a phone number, and they would spit the phone number out to you. What did you do? Come on, you old guys. Yeah, you just kept repeating the phone number to yourself, right? 5154 5454, and then you kept reading it out while you were dialing it again, right? This is maintenance rehearsal, right? Saying the thing over and over and over to yourself. You're just recycling it into short-term memory so you don't forget it. That one's tough, easy to get interrupted with that, easy to end that loop. What we really want to do is we want to encode that information. We want to get it into long-term memory. So what are some of the things that we can do for that? We have one of the key things that we have, and this is something I stress for all my training courses, is you have to create multiple pathways for information, right? So there's a very popular axiom for teaching. It's read it, write it, say it, right? You have a presentation, you've got a book, whatever it is, you read information, right? That's one way to get it into your brain. Reading sucks, right? Reading is so slow for your brain. Your brain's like, I want to see flashy lights. I want to do something else. This is really boring. Reading is the worst way to try to remember anything. Right? So we've got to create another pathway. The next thing you should do is write it. Right? Even if you're just rewriting out the same list that's sitting up on a slide, you're making a new pathway. Right? You're strengthening that encoding information into your brain and make it easier to recall that on Friday when you do the exam. The next thing you should do is say it, right? So say it out loud, right? If you're struggling with what is the detention time in a primary tank, what is the target detention time, what is the target surface overflow rate for a primary tank? I need to remember this fact. I know it's going to be on the exam, right? Read it. Write it out, say it out to yourself, right? So in the shower, in the car to yourself, say it out. Once again, you'll create another pathway for that information and make it easier to recall. I always add in the other things too. So think it, experience it. Now, this is easy. Maybe if you're at a wastewater treatment plant that has a primary tank that you're operating all the time, you can try to visualize that. You can think about the surface overflow rate when you're doing your rounds and you're hosing off the tank, whatever it is. And once again, now you're adding a visual component to that learning experience, right? We are visual learners. Like if we can visualize something, it makes it a lot easier for us to remember. This is also then becomes a problem then for operators like, hey, this exam has just had one this morning. I operate a membrane treatment plant. There's no membrane treatment questions on this exam. I have to learn a whole bunch of stuff that I don't know. If you can go on a tour of a plant that has that technology and you can get a visual image, really, really helps you out with remembering things. So some other key things we can look at. Now, not every strategy works for every person. We can use mnemonics. So this is things like using acronyms, right? Roy G. Biv, right? You all got taught that in grade 2 or grade 1 on how to remember the colors of the rainbow, right? Things like bed mass, the lazy fox jumping over Susan, right? You got taught these mnemonic things to try to remember complex information. You can make up your own mnemonics if you want, if you've got a list or some information that you need to think of. So whether using the first letter of everything and making a sentence out of it, whatever it happens to be. The other one, this one's a really big one for doing exams, remembering factoids, things like that, is this idea of chunking. Once again, you're often reading a manual, you're getting a whole list of, hey, these are the key information you need to know. We can't remember that big list. We need to be able to break it up into small chunks. And, the good example of this, once again, is telephone numbers, right? This is why we break up phone numbers into area code, first 3 digits, last 4 digits. We break that 10 numbers, which would be hard to remember, we break it up into 3 chunks. Those small chunks are now easy to remember. Another example, this will pop up here real quick here. Anyone go see a memory expert dazzle you when he takes in 200 people's names that are sitting in the conference and then at the end spews out everyone's name exactly to the person, some fact about them, and then you buy their book for $29.99 after the presentation? Or the guys who spew out 200 numbers of pi, right? This is the trick that most memory experts use. They use imagination and association. Right? So there's a technique, we won't get into it, you can look it up online, look up YouTube videos, things that are called memory palaces, memory castles. It's the idea of trying to remember something that's very vivid in your mind, like the first home, the home you grew up with. And because that's a very vivid memory for you, is you can put things in that picture in your mind, right? I can put the surface overflow rate on a poster in my bedroom that I grew up in, right? And you'll be able to recall that. This is a really, really complex kind of memory encoding, but it works for a lot of people, right? If you've got a vivid imagination, or you're really good at visualizations. So this is one I try to work with people, right? Okay, what are you doing on your rounds at your wastewater treatment plant? You're standing in front of a pump. What are you looking at? What's going on with that pump? And trying to run through those visualizations, and then you can add in some other information on there that hopefully you'll be able to recall later. Now we come to what we really want to know, right? Retrieval. We need to get this information out. One of the ways we can really help encode information is by doing retrieval, right? We've memorized it, we've used a mnemonic, we've used a memory palace, we've done some chunking, whatever it happens to be. We want to make sure that information is there. Retrieval is, once again, just trying to access that information. The best way for our purposes, for exams and that, is do quizzes, right? So do a quiz on primary treatment. Look at the answers that you got wrong. Then go back to whatever material you're learning from and find the answer, right? Don't just go, oh yeah, the answer was C, and move on. If you got it wrong, it's because you have not encoded that information properly. Like I said, go back to the original information, find out what the correct answer is, think about it, use whatever memory technique you're going to do, write it out, say it, visualize it, whatever memory technique works best for you, then try to retrieve it again, right? Some later date, do another quiz. See if now you're able to remember that information and retrieve it. The more often you do this, the better you will get at encoding that information, but also being able to recall it. The other one with that is spaced learning. So this is really big also for when you're sitting in a conference like this, trying to remember what someone's talking about, or more, this is really important when you're reading a Sac State manual, right? And you've got 500 pages of information, and you're just sitting there flipping pages and reading and reading. Like I said, reading really sucks for memory. It's way too slow, it's too hard, there's too much information coming in. We don't know what to encode. So what they've been able to show through studies is that if you space out your learning, you will be able to remember things a lot easier. So rather than sitting down for an hour and slogging through a whole chapter of a Sac State book or whatever it is that you're using, is break up that time, right? Read one section of the chapter, think about that, write out some notes, say what the key parts of the information were from that couple of pages. If there's a little quiz, do the little quiz. Try to work on just a very small chunk of information, but also space that information out, right? If you're just slogging through page after page, you're going to end up at the end and not understand a thing that you read. All right, so now why does that encoding fail, right? Why does this information, I'm taking my time trying to read this book, I'm doing spaced learning, I'm thinking about things, I'm writing out notes, I'm saying it out loud, I still can't remember it. What the hell's going on here? There are some problems that we have with memory. One of the key ones is sleep deprivation, right? If you're not sleeping well, you just came off night shift and you're going to a course, you're not going to remember a thing that the instructor said, right? It's just not going to be able to go near. Your brain is tired, it wants to shut down. So we need to make sure that we're well rested for learning. Another key one, depression, stress, put those in there together. Emotional state, we can just put it at that. If you're sitting in a course and all you can think in the back of your mind is, how the heck are you going to get your kids to soccer and make your hockey game and get home in rush hour to make dinner for everyone? You're not going to be in a good emotional state to be able to encode the information that's being given to you in that course, right? Your mind is preoccupied by stress, right? Or whatever other emotional state you have going on. Obviously, we can have aging is a problem, right? As we get older, it gets harder to remember things. You can end up with diseases like Alzheimer's that affect memory recall. Nowadays, the one that we worry about is excessive stimuli, right? So once again, we go back to that short-term memory, right? Really, really quick, but we can only hold a little bit of information in that short-term memory. So if we keep flooding more stuff into that short-term memory, our brain has got to work too quickly to decide what's important, what's not. So if you're, trying to read a manual or sit in a class and your phone's going and there's flashy lights and you're playing Candy Crush and whatever's happening, there's too much stimuli going on, right? You need to be able to focus on what you're trying to learn, right? You need to try to eliminate as much stimuli as possible and just focus on what's important for you at that time. Nutrition's important. One of the key ones they have for memory is B12, right? If you do not have enough B12, and once again, I'm not going to get into it, and there's no, if there is someone who does some neurology on the side, they can get up later and explain how B12 makes proper neural pathways in the brain. But that is the critical vitamin for memory. Drugs, obviously, hopefully, if you're sitting and you're under the influence of anything in a class, well, that's going to affect your memory and your recall later inside of the class. And we mentioned aging, right? As you get older, things get harder and harder to encode. So what can I do to help me with this information? Well, once again, if you're going to learn something, you've got a certification exam coming up, make sure that you're ready for that information. So you're well rested, you're fed, you're in a good mental space, you're focused on what you are trying to learn, right? Engage with the material in new ways. If you just show up at my training course and you sit in the back corner and you watch the slides as they flip by, you're not engaging with the material, right? This is that idea of write it out, say it. Look at a YouTube video, visualize it some way. How does the information that's being presented to you, how does that apply to your day-to-day operation of your wastewater treatment facility? Take in small chunks of information, right? Like I said, don't read chapter after chapter of that Sac State book, right? It's not going to do you any good, He's like, yeah, I finished the Sac State book in 5 days. Cool. Well, you probably didn't remember a thing, right? Yeah, you filled out all the bubble sheet and you got 92% on the bubble sheet, but it was in, out, and gone, right? When you get to the exam, you're going to be sitting there wondering, oh, no, I know I read something about this. Do review questions, right? So review questions are big, right? So, do those chapter quizzes, quiz yourself. There's lots of things. The AWWA has an app, where you can log in every day and it gives you random questions. Go over that information, right? Retrieve that information that you've encoded. Try some of the different techniques, right? Like I said, not everything works the same for everyone, right? Mnemonics work for lots of people. If you can do a memory palace, hey, right? It's a very, very powerful memory tool. Try doing things like visualization or linking, right? Those are really big ones. Like I said, think of yourself doing the rounds around your wastewater treatment plant. Stop at the secondary clarifier. What's important here? Go over what's happening in that clarifier, right? And you can hopefully then try to recall some of that information later. Big one, when you get to exam time, is relax, right? So stress is huge for failing on exams, right? You need to remove as much stress as possible. Get to the exam early, have a good sleep, eat well. If you pop some B12, if you've got some sitting in the cupboard. Don't try to cram right before the exam. Once again, don't try to sit there outside the door of the exam room with the manual and trying to read over, oh my God, I need to remember what happens with digester gas, right? It's not gonna be in there, right? Unless you sit there and just repeat that information over and over in your short term, it's gonna be gone, right? And you're stressing yourself out. You're going to forget other small key pieces of information that will help you on the exam. Right? Think positive thoughts. So don't go into an exam going, I'm gonna fail. This exam's too hard. The EOCP is trying to screw me. It's all just a money grab, right? So we gotta think positive thoughts. Hey, I know this. This is gonna be easy. I'm gonna pass. I'm gonna get my pay raise. This is gonna be great, right? They have shown in research that just by thinking positively about an exam, it does elevate people's scores, right? Once again, that's part of removing stress, right? People are more relaxed when they're thinking positive thoughts about what's going on. The other one I always stress in my courses too for people on exams is you've got a lot of time, right? You've got 3 hours on that certification exam. Use that time. If you find that you're getting stressed, well, take a break, right? Put your head down close your eyes for 20 seconds. Just try to take a break and not get that stress level rising during the exam. Have a strategy for the exam. Everyone takes exams slightly different, but you should go in with some idea of what you're going to be doing on that exam. One of the really common ones, skip math questions till the end, right? People get stressed out about math questions. You don't want to be on question number 4 freaking out because it's an MCRT question and you did not study that, don't understand what the hell that is, and then for the rest of the exam, all you're thinking about is stupid question number 4 that you got wrong. Right? Another good strategy for people is to group questions together. So the exam, it's totally randomized, right? There's question number 1 is about preliminary treatment. Question number 75 is about preliminary treatment. If you kind of go through the exam and say, hey, I'm gonna be me. I'm gonna walk through my wastewater treatment plant. I'm at the preliminary. This is what happens in preliminary. This is what goes on. Well, go through the exam that way, right? Try to answer all those, and you'll see that a lot of the questions are linked together in some way. So once again, different strategies work for different people though. Read questions clearly. Try to answer it in your head. Don't go directly to the answers. Try to see if you can answer the question first on your own. And then if you see your answer sitting there as D, take it. Get out of there, right? Move on. Skip past anything that is unfamiliar, right? Once again, this is also helping keep that stress level. You don't want to be reading a question over and over and over and saying, hey, I don't know anything about this. This is weird. Oh my God, I'm going to fail. Move on, right? Keep going. Go to something that's easy, something that you remember, right? Get that confidence back up. And when you are reviewing those unfamiliar questions, when you go back to those questions, well, start to look at the answers then. If the question itself doesn't make any sense to you, maybe some of the answers do, right? If it's a question about digestion and you know that answer C is about secondary treatment, cool, eliminate that, right? Start to get it hopefully down to 2. And at the end, if you got to guess, right? You don't get a certificate at the end of the course that says passed but guessed on 5 questions, right? So, no one knows. Right? And once again, take your time if you have to. Take educated guesses, review the exam, make sure you've answered everything. But like I said, the key things you're going to take from this is try to use some memory and coding techniques when you are encountering new information. So, right, don't just read it. You've got to move on, write it out, say it out, visualize the information. Try to apply it to somehow into your day-to-day experiences, and you'll be able to encode that information, and when you get to the exam, it'll be easy for you to pop it out. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. Online, use the chat line for questions for Scott, and anybody in the audience, just raise your hand and Scott will try to address them. And I got to tell you, you validated, the exams do get harder as we get older. That's good, because that's a phenomenon I have been experiencing. But it's interesting to see the way you've broken that down, and there's some tricks in there. And it's hard for adult education for us, for people to do these exams, especially with long gaps in between. So those hints are appreciated. So questions?
Dean.
Yes, Scott, just a quick question. On the EOCP website, there is a draft document for core competencies, say for small wastewater systems or wastewater collections and so forth. Is that been updated? Is that what somebody can use as a guideline to go through, that you covered all those competencies as well as a guideline? I know you can take a course, but you want to make sure you get this one, hit this one, hit this one, right?
Yeah, you're correct, Dean. And one of the big things I see that's good with those core competencies is to see what's different, right? Like if you look at, for wastewater treatment, if you look at the core competencies for level 1 and level 2, well, level 1 mentions lagoons. Well, when you get to core competency in level 2, there's nothing on lagoons there. So, right, forget everything you've learned about lagoons. There's something new that you need to try to memorize or try to learn for that exam. Yeah. Perfect. Anyone else?
For example, when me just commenting on something with ADD or ADHD.
Yeah.
So I'll just say that if you're in that spectrum like myself, I will see a fly. Where does that fly come from? How do you kill it? Where are they made? Next thing you know, I'm in somewhere in Kentucky figuring out how they made these things to kill a fly. For me, squishy ball, gum, candy. It's the only thing that'll keep me focused on what I'm doing. It's just kind of, I know everybody's not on the spectrum, but it's just a tool to stay on the spectrum. It helps.
Yeah. And that leads back to that focus, right? Like you've got to remove stimuli, whether it's stimuli inside your brain that's taking you down the wrong path or external, and try to stay focused. Yeah.
The online people can't hear your questions, so repeat them.
Oh, so, there you go.
4 years ago, when I was writing my first major exams, they wrote on the board, read the question. I'm not going to tell you the way they used to write it, but now for the others, they put a square beside it, and it's absolutely, as we get older, it is very imperative to read the question twice before you try to answer it, and that's something you have to pay attention to, right?
Yeah. So the question was about, reading the question. And this goes back to the idea of how we process information. I skipped by really quick and said, reading sucks because it's too slow. Our brain works so much faster than we can read. If you go to some of these memory experts, they'll put up a paragraph up there and they'll ask you to read it, but they'll click it off in 2 seconds or something. There's no way. But your brain has picked out 4 words and already decided what the whole paragraph is about. And the same happens on the exam, right? If you do not stop and read the question nice and carefully, your brain has picked up 2 words, decided that C was the answer because it recognized 2 words, and you're gone. Yeah. So no, great point. You need to read. You need to take your time, read the questions nice and carefully. Anyone else? Good.
Do we have any questions online? Bottom there? Nothing?
Yeah, use the mic so
Yeah, we just figured that out.
We figured that one out. Sorry, online people. It's morning. We're trying.
Okay, Scott, on behalf of EOCP, I'd like to present you with this gift, and thank you very much for the presentation. I'd also, we're ending up, we're going to take a 15-minute break. I hope everybody can be back. We're going to have Jennifer Page next on the BC provincial regulations. Should be interesting, so thank you very much. See you in 15.